We sailed Titanic up and down the pool a few times. Just want I tell you a little bit of history about this vessel, because it probably is the most, I was going to say famous, but in many respects the most infamous vessel ever built. We're going to take you back to 1907, when two gentlemen, Mr. J. Bruce Ismay, the president of the White Star Line, and Lord Peary, the chairman of Harland and Wolff, the famous shipbuilders in Belfast, came up with a plan to build three very large, absolutely luxurious liners to use on the passenger carrying market across the North Atlantic. The ships were to be called the Olympic, the Titanic, the one that's on the water now, and the third one was to be called, and it's a fantastic name, the Gigantic. When Titanic was built, she was the largest movable man-made object anywhere in the world. And boys and girls, I'll give you some of the statistics of the ship, both in imperial measurements, so your dad understands it, and also in metric, so you understand it. Titanic was very big indeed. She was 883 feet long, which is approximately 269 meters. That's a good full-size football pitches, 3 football pitches at least. Across her beam, that's the widest point of the hull, she was 93 feet, some 28 meters. And here's the really big number, she weighed 46,328 tons. And in her construction, they used over 3 million rivets, all of which were beaten in by hand. Her maiden voyage was out of Southampton on the south coast, and she went across the English Channel to Cherbourg in France, and from there she went to Queenstown in Ireland.
That's what it's called, isn't it?
And from Queenstown she was destined to sail across the North Atlantic to New York City. See, we just recruited a new lady captain. Well done, madam. Titanic left Southampton on Wednesday the 10th of April 1912 at exactly 12 noon. And to give you an idea of how big she was, on board were a total of 2,201 passengers and crew. Now, as they sailed off into the night, they'd been at sea in the North Atlantic for over 2 days. And in came a radio message that warned them. And by the way, the radio message was in Morse code. No clever GPS or sat-nav in those days. And the radio message warned the Titanic that icebergs were in the area much further south in the North Atlantic than they would normally be. Titanic was captained by Edward J. Smith, and he'd never seen icebergs so low in the South Atlantic, and he thought he was very safe to stay on his course. But as history recalls, he hit one of the icebergs. Titanic struck the iceberg at 11:40 p.m. It was totally dark at the time. They were 1,000 miles from the nearest land. There was no moonlight on the night. It was absolutely pitch black outside. The air temperature was just a fraction above freezing, 0 degrees. When they launched the lifeboats, it quickly became apparent that the lifeboats were not capable of carrying all the 2,000 people on board. The impact with the iceberg had ripped some of the rivets out of the side of the hull, split the steelwork, and water gushed into the bells. And very quickly they realized all the publicity about the Titanic saying it was unsinkable clearly was not true. because the water entering the ship went over the bulkheads, started to flood several compartments, and slowly but surely the bow of the ship started to go down. She didn't finally sink until 2:20 a.m. Now, boys and girls, let me warn you, if you fall into water that's that cold, your chances of survival are probably anywhere between 5 minutes and 30 minutes at the most. Now imagine falling into freezing water in total darkness and the water being nearly freezing.